Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Sabah al-Khair. Your Excellencies and respected delegates, good morning. My name is Dana Dajani. I am delighted to welcome you all today to the Humanitarian Leadership Conference, co-convened by the Center for Humanitarian Leadership and the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies, sponsored by the IMS Foundation, the Gates Foundation, Qatar Charity, and hosted in collaboration with Pledge for Change. Thank you all for being here today. I am an MC and a spoken word poet, and my primary role at this conference, in addition to being your Master of Ceremonies on the main stage, is to be present as a keynote listener. As I did in a previous iteration of this conference in 2021, my role as keynote listener was to attend the speeches, keynotes, panels, and workshops throughout the two-day conference, and to serve as a sort of creative scribe, to summarize and synthesize everything that I hear in the next 2 days by all of you, and to reflect them back to you all at the end of the conference through poetry. I will also be sharing some of my original spoken word pieces throughout the event to help us move between the right and left hemispheres of the brain and from the head to the heart. I'd like to start us off with a brief land acknowledgement. Here in Doha, Qatar, we do not live on stolen land. And so I will take this opportunity not only to pay respect to the generations of leadership which have nurtured Qatari society, welcoming individuals from the furthest reaches of the globe to contribute to this great country, but also to give thanks to the land and sea. As a Palestinian, I do come from occupied land, and I have immense gratitude for Qatar and those of this land who hold space, the space of mediation, creating a common ground, an inclusive meeting place. Our intentions while here are to nurture visions for the future and connections which may positively impact the communities which we serve, which we are a part of, and the whole world. And for that we say, Alhamdulillah. With gratitude for all those who have walked our lands, worked our lands, built our lands. With gratitude for our ancestors who planted a seed, grew a lineage that led us here. With gratitude for all the hands, helping, guiding, opened hands to welcome and receive, to give and show up with care. With gratitude for fists raised in protest, holding the line, we honor our pain for Gaza at this time. We honor our pain for Syria, Lebanon at this time, Yemen, Ethiopia, Congo, Myanmar, Sudan in this time. We honor our pain for the world in this time. We honor all the lives lost to greed, the innumerable cost of corruption, the rippling destruction. How do we say goodbye? When will we say enough? Who is to be held accountable? What is to be resurrected from the rubble? Let's envision it together. And with that, the Humanitarian Leadership Conference 2025 officially begins. And it is with great pleasure that I will soon invite to the stage Dr. Ghassan Elkahlout, the director here at the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies and associate professor in conflict management and humanitarian action at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. With a PhD in post-war reconstruction and development studies from University of York, Dr. Ghassan Elkahlout has gone on to lead a distinguished and varied career as a humanitarian professional, working with the United Nations Nations, the International Federation of the Red Crescent Societies, and Islamic Relief Worldwide, and has served as a member of a wide range of emergency humanitarian response teams from around the world. He is also a celebrated author, and his research on humanitarian action and post-conflict recovery in conflict-affected contexts has appeared in many prestigious publications. His book, Humanitarian Action, Reality and Challenges, is one of the leading books on the subject in Arabic. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ghassan Al-Kahlout to the stage. Ahlan.
Your Excellency, your dear esteemed guests and delegates, colleagues, audience, peace be upon you and good morning to all of you. It is my great pleasure to inaugurate this international conference titled Transformative Leadership in Times of Polyclinics. I'd also like to thank our partners from Australia, and I would like to welcome you all to this meeting that we eager to make it like not even as a small meeting. It is held in light of polycrises that are helping us to take a position in the role of a humanitarian is a main role during these crises at the level of practices and legal liability. The huge stress that we will imply on the international would help us to open more gates for the help of people in different areas. Systematic killing of people through accusation and financial sanctions. In return, there is a deep need for humanitarian aid, not only in conflict areas, but in areas where there is economic harshness. From this stems the subject of this conference, where transformative leadership in times of polycrisis arises as an important aspect to redefine leadership. Leadership is not only about funding, but it is the ability to connect between ethics and efficiency, between decision makers and the sounds that are not heard. We are not going to start this conference without retrieving the calamities that the different countries are witnessing in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Palestine, and especially the one that is continuous in Palestine, in Gaza. It is a great shock to all of those who believe in the humanitarian aspect and its belief. Since October 24, the people are subject to catastrophic situations. Hundreds of thousands of people are killed, a huge collapse in the infrastructure. Schools, hospitals are being devastated. It is not a struggle, but there are genocides that are taking place before the eyes of the whole world, which is unable to stop this, and the inability to assume the responsibility of protecting humans. Referring to Gaza is not a political aspect, but it's a humanitarian one. We have to rethink of the human intervention and to encounter human genocide. Dear colleagues, in this context, we cannot neglect the role the state of Qatar plays in supporting the humanitarian aspect regionally and international. It has been a main supplier of help and provided an area of debate and which reflects the commitment that the state Qatar has adopted. Our center has played its role to bridge between theory and the practice, between the regional experience, the local one, as well as the international. Through the different partnerships, we enhance the critical thinking, the strategic planning, and the multi-sound discussion. In this context, this conference comes in collaboration with our partners, who we are grateful to their successful contribution to weave this dialogue. And also would like to thank Pledge for Change, Gates Foundation, Qatar Foundation, or Qatar Charity, and Irene MS. And also I would like to thank the speakers from different UN nation organization, local organizations, universities. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And finally, I would like to welcome you all, and I hope that a successful, fruitful conference that will lead to fruitful partnership, where there is a need for deeds more than for actions more than words. Thank you so much for your kind listening.
Shukran, Dr. Ghassan. Thank you, Dr. Ghassan, for hosting us at the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies. Next, I would like to introduce Professor Simon Tormey, Executive Dean of Arts and Education and Professor of Politics at Deakin University. Professor Simon Tormey also served as Dean of Social Studies and Law at the University of Bristol, where he led the creation of a new business school and the development of a thriving research group in socio-digital studies. With previous posts at the University of Sydney as the first head of social and political sciences, and the University of Nottingham, where among other roles he set up and directed the influential Center for the Study of Social and Global Justice. He is a political theorist by training, and Professor Simon Tormey has made significant contributions, having co-written 7 books and over 60 articles, which have been translated into 9 languages. As a scholar in the discipline of politics, he's engaged closely with issues around ideology, extremism, violence, and politics. More recently on the impact of technology on politics, as well as populism and social movements and citizen mobilization in Europe. Professor Simon is a frequent media commentator and contemporary political and economic developments globally, appearing regularly on ABC, BBC, and Sky News. We're very pleased to have him with us today. Please join me in welcoming Professor Simon Tormey to the stage. Welcome.
Thank you for that introduction, Dana. Much appreciated. You'll be relieved to know I haven't come with a big long script here or anything like that. I've been told to keep it very short and sweet. So I will endeavour to do so. My Irish background is a problem in succinctness, I think, but we'll try and do our best. But most important thing is to recognise the incredible support that we have had for hosting this conference. So I'd like to begin by thanking Dr. Ghassan, previous speaker, and the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies. Without the support as well of IMS Foundation, Gates Foundation, Qatar Charity as sponsors, of course, none of this would be able to take place. And I'd also like to say a huge thank you and acknowledge the very distinguished audience here today, including ambassadors and many other leaders. And this is a conference about leadership, and we'll need all the leadership that we can manage from whatever place it comes to. I was also very touched by Dana's opening words in acknowledgement of peoples, indigenous peoples, and the people who we don't tend to hear very much from. And when we host a conference like this in Australia, we always begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. And we do that, I think, when it's done well, it's a very sobering reminder of what's at stake generally for our societies, but also for those of us who are interested in politics and humanitarian leadership, that around the world there are many, many struggles going on. Of course, Dana referenced one, but everywhere. Ordinary people, indigenous peoples, peoples with no money and no power are struggling for voice. And I think it's part of our responsibility over the next 2 days, isn't it? To give voice to the powerless in the best way that we can do that. More generally, we're coming together at an extreme point in history, aren't we? Dana referenced my interest in politics. My PhD was on the Russian Revolution and its interpretations, and a famous quote which does the rounds at the moment, which I think is very apt, is one by Lenin. Decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. And it feels a little bit like that at the moment, doesn't it? We kind of wake up, we switch the TV on, what has been going on in that brief moment when one was asleep in one's bed. Lenin was, of course, not only a theorist, he was a practitioner. Wherever you sit in terms of your ideological commitments, what Lenin recognized was that there are moments, and that we call them crises, where we have extreme contingency. And extreme contingency can be read in one of two ways, can't it? It can be read as a threat to the order, to our sense of what it is that we must do, our obligations, our duties to others, the mechanisms that we use, the institutions that we rely on, the countries that we rely on. But in moments of crisis, a lot of that melts away, doesn't it? And that puts me in mind of another figure from that same tradition as Lenin. Marx himself wrote brilliantly, I think, in the Communist Manifesto, a phrase which I think, again, does sum up what contingency means. All that is solid melts into air. All that is holy is profaned, and man is, with sober senses, forced to confront the true relations with his kind. That was Marx trying to grapple with the impact of capitalism and the nature of the crisis that capitalism brings to the world. Of course, there are many opportunities and there are many upsides, capitalist development and so on, but what Marx, I think, captures so well there is what we mean by crisis. And what we mean by polycrisis is an amplification of that tendency towards trying to figure something out and rely on extant institutions, figures, regimes to do so. I think we're gathering at a moment where we can't rely on some of those old nostrums, those old sources of support. We don't need to name them. Other people are going to name them, I'm sure, in the course of the conference. But just to put this in perspective, that when we were thinking about this conference, the Center for Humanitarian Leadership huddled up and said, it's such an extreme moment of crisis, should we just not have a conference? Should we just let it lie for a bit and see what the new landscape looks like? But then I think in a moment of extreme leadership, Maryam and her team said, well, no, this moment of crisis, a polycrisis, is a moment when leadership is required, isn't it? And that's why you're all here, because I think collectively we sense that there's a moment of crisis, which is not just risk, but also opportunity. Opportunity for new actors, opportunity for new alliances, opportunities for new ways of thinking about how we can impact the world really become relevant and pertinent. So let's not lose that moment. Let's not just get lost in the fog of what we're doing online or anything like that, but to make use of the conversations, the opportunities to meet others, the opportunities to really set a new direction for humanitarian leadership. So just on that last point, I do want to, my largest thanks is to Maryam and McGlasson and the colleagues at the Center for Humanitarian Leadership. They have brought something very new and very different to Deakin University and I think to the university sector, which is a sense of real responsibility and obligation to do things and not just to theorize about things or write about things, but to encourage all of us to be actors in this extraordinary moment in history. So on that note, I wish everyone a fantastic 2 days. Do make the most of it, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting people here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Simon. So up next, I'm delighted to welcome to the stage the woman who was integral to the creation of this event, the director for the Center for Humanitarian Leadership, Associate Professor Maryam McGlasson. Maryam joined the Center for Humanitarian Leadership in June 2020, bringing extensive experience in humanitarian leadership from various roles at leading INGOs and academic institutions. Currently, Mariana oversees CHL's strategy direction and acts as the focal point with Deakin University and their partnership with Save the Children, Australia. In her 4 years with the organization, Mariana developed and rolled out CHL's Strategy Plan 2020 to 2024, during which period the organization obtained significant new funding and new and existing partners, as well as launching a highly regarded new leadership development short course which won numerous Deakin University and industry awards. Mariana holds a dual master's degree in public policy and nursing from Princeton University and the University of Washington, bringing to the CHL almost 20 years of experience as a family nurse practitioner and a decade of country-level experience in designing, implementing, and overseeing humanitarian and development programs in a wide range of roles. With gratitude for bringing us all together here today, let's welcome Mariam McGlasson to the stage.
What a beautiful group of people. Just to provide you some statistics for our gathering, we are expecting 250 or more people from 85 countries in person and at least 200 people online. And I can tell you, as of even an hour ago, we have new registrations coming. I did not prepare any remarks for this morning, and there's a good reason for that. I want to lead by example. This conference is not about talking points. It's not about talking about what we talked about 5 years ago or 10 years ago or last month. It's a moment for us to come together, to connect, to listen to each other, and to try and forge a new system, a new way of working, frankly, so that our species can survive this moment of crisis. I'm just so honored by many of you who crossed literal war zones across national borders and did everything in your power to make sure that you could be here today from quite literally every corner of the world. We have representatives from some of the hardest hit crises in the entire planet in this room and online over the next 2 days. I want to encourage all of you to lean in to the moment of crisis, to lean into the opportunity to connect here in this space. And I'd like us to remember, and I hope this is very clear when you look at your program, we are graced with a lot of dignitaries in this room, but the real VIPs are the local leaders who have crossed every context and border in the world to come here and be with us today. So you will hear voices on this stage that often are not the ones who get the microphone. That is intentional. I am frankly sick of the entire humanitarian sector and its talking points. I'm even sick of my own talking points. So I encourage you all, let's start today not thinking about what's wrong with the current system. We've had enough of that conversation. You will hear a lot of discussion over the next 6 months, 2 years, 5 years about a humanitarian reset, about humanitarian sector reform. My view, let that reform process continue and let's remain optimistic that it can deliver on the promise of global accountability and solidarity. But in the meantime, in this space for the next 2 days and hopefully beyond, let's be action-oriented, let's call each other to accountability, and let's find the way forward. Let's put our energy in this next 2 days into working together to discover the way forward. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I look forward to meeting with all of you over the next few days.
Thank you, Mariana, for your vision and your efforts in creating this incredible gathering. Moving along to our first keynote speech of the conference, it is a great privilege to invite to the stage Her Excellency Mrs. Maryam bint Ali bin Nasser Al-Misnad, the Minister of State for International Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Qatar. Her Excellency Mrs. Maryam bint Ali bin Nasser Al-Misnad was appointed Minister of State for International Cooperation in 2024. Before that, Her Excellency was appointed as Minister of Social Development and Family. Throughout her career, she has held various prominent positions, including Executive Director of the Administrative and Financial Sector at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies and Executive Director for the Orphan Care Center, DREAMA. Her Excellency Mrs. Maryam has also served as Executive Director of the Center for Protection and Rehabilitation from Violence Against Women and Children, also known as AMAN, the Regional Director of Communication and Awareness Campaigns at the Education Above All Foundation, the Director of Media and Communication Department at the Social Rehabilitation Center Al-Aween, and Executive Director of Childhood Cultural Centers. She holds a bachelor's degree in Humanities and English Literature from Qatar University, as well as an executive master's degree in Strategic Planning and Business Administration from HEC Paris. Please join me in warmly welcoming Her Excellency to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Allow me to speak in Arabic, but I know that you're sick of the talking points. Just bear with me mine.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious and most merciful, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah be upon you. I am pleased to inaugurate this important conference which seeks realistic and sustainable solutions to the growing humanitarian challenges facing our world today, and which brings together a leading elite of leaders, thinkers, and humanitarian. Our world today faces intertwined and worsening crises, where one humanitarian crisis hardly subsides before it is replaced by another. With every crisis, there are innocent victims, children deprived from education, families displaced from their homes, sick people stranded, and others deprived from their rights of development and even right to a decent life. Today's international reality is witnessing unprecedented challenges, from conflicts that do not distinguish between civilians and military personnel, to waves of mass displacement, to flagrant violations of international humanitarian law, including the prevention of humanitarian aid and food, the targeting of vital facilities and humanitarian workers, in addition to the restrictions on a humanitarian organization. With the expansion of areas of suffering and the increasing number of victims, the humanitarian response is no longer responsibility of a specific country or a single party, but rather a collective responsibility that requires international solidarity, comprehensive and effective cooperation, and serious political will. Based on our In the occupied Palestinian terrain, the military escalation in Gaza has once again exposed the fragility of the international system for protecting civilians, and we witness the death of thousands of women and children. The state of Qatar has actively participated in international effort to reach ceasefire agreement in partnership with Egypt and the United States. We emphasize the importance of implementing of all phases of the agreement, including the release of prisoners and detainees, the cessation of aggression, and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. Despite the challenges, we have continued to deliver urgent humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip in accordance with the United Nations, and we will also continue. In Sudan, the ongoing war has led to humanitarian disaster that is expanding today. The state of Qatar has been keen to respond urgently by sending relief aid and supporting humanitarian program. Dear guest, the question here, how do we create change? The answer lies in re-evaluating the mechanism of joint action. We must mobilize political and international support, coordinate efforts efficiently, enhance transparency and accountability, and rely on accurate data to determine priorities and needs that ensure and effective humanitarian responses. Likewise, we must develop humanitarian responses mechanisms to be more flexible and able to adapt to changing reality, not limited to aid only, but rather include prevention, capacity building, and diplomatic pressure to protect civilians and hold accountable those who violate international laws. The international community must assume its full responsibility and not to be complacent in the face of tragedies and become accustomed to images of suffering. We must not accept the status quo, but rather we must join forces to reshape. In conclusion, I am confident that the conference, which with its diverse minds and expertise, will provide a platform for formulating new visions, and we wish further fruitful conference and depth discussion. May the peace and mercy be upon you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. As this conference is about rethinking leadership, I would like to share an original spoken word poem of mine right now, which is called If I Was President. I was telling the CHL team recently I began writing the first few verses of this poem in 2013. And in 2016, when Donald Trump was elected president, I dug those verses out of my notes and I continued the poem, never, ever, ever imagining that he would be reelected for a second term. I find myself flabbergasted that we should ever have to choose between the lesser of two evils when it comes to leadership. So here's an alternative vision of leadership. May it inspire and entertain. Taxpayers, shareholders, and Instagrammers, lend me your fears. The evil that men do outlives them. Yet you seem disposed to brutish beasts, men who have lost their reason now. Bear with me. If I was president, I would drone out the demands of the corporatocracy and focus on communities. My foreign policy would be to explode education opportunities onto third world countries and refugees. Healthcare and housing, why, they'd be free. Imagine what we could aspire to create if we didn't have to hustle to fulfill our basic needs. If I was president, my role as conflict mediator would include therapy and hugs. My constitution would be universal love. My border policy would be open door. I'd eliminate banks and in turn free the poor from the shackles of debt. I'd do some spring cleaning in the media outlets and TV stations so that only honest journalism and valuable information was broadcast to my nation. If I was president, I'd make my citizens pay taxes in the form of planting trees. Your tax return would be heirloom seeds. There'd be a national farming day off every week, and Monsanto could kiss my plush pink cheeks if I was president. If I was president, classrooms would have no walls. Teachers would be paid more than guys who play ball, and education would be a community call. Because I know that it takes a village to raise a child. And so it would take the whole world to lift up one country. And when we got to where I think we could be, why, we'd elevate all the rest so that they can see what we see from such great heights as true liberty. Now, I'm not talking about spreading democracy through war games, no. I'm talking about authentic development and fair trade, a free-flowing exchange of ideas, resources, and yes, humans. As your presidential candidate, I should tell you, I think restrictions on immigration are a bit stupid. Anyone who plants roots here will surely bloom, and, well, what a beautiful garden that would make for all of you. If I was president, I would hand out passports and postcards, encourage my citizens to travel to the far reaches of the earth, asking all who ventured out to share what they learned so that my nation could never become a xenophobic herd of ignorant, violent, belligerent, closed-minded, right-wing leeches who spew hate speech. If I was president, I think it's clear what my stance on welfare would be. A top priority to ensure that my citizens felt compelled to find work in an industry which speaks to their soul and heart. If I was president, creating your perfect job would be an art that we all would enjoy, because I know that what you do with love will benefit every girl and boy in our nation and probably beyond. If I was president, I would lead a global campaign to collect every weapon on Earth, march them straight up into a volcano, dump them in, and brace for planetary rebirth, because with no hateful metal between us, we'd have to dance out our differences. There'd be no more battling, just the rattling of bones to booming music till all collapsed, sweaty, settled, unassuming, and laughing at all those moves they saw those dancing troops doing. Our bodies not so different after all, free to be loved, decorated, celebrated, not ravaged by war. If I was president, I would tell Big Pharma to stuff it with their pills, make sure BP, Shell, and the like never had another oil spill, and ensure that Mother Earth stops footing the bill for our compulsive consumption. Now, with this upcoming election on the horizon, I just wanted to make clear you understand the person I am, the principles I stand for, and the world I envision. But ultimately, my fellow citizens, it is your decision. Whether or not you elect a president who advocates division could lead you on a neo-inquisition. Oh, beware the hype of television, and stay true to your democratic values. Because if I was president, that is what I'd do. Thank you.